the meeting.
Nice. We are.
It's already live streaming the meeting, and we're just going to look like idiots.
Yeah, well, it always does that. It always screws you up at that beginning bit, so you never get it quite right.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Facebook says this, Zoom says this, all of y'all are screwed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we are live, so if anyone's watching us, do tell us that we're live and you can see us, because that's always nice. Hello, my friend. Well, we've been chatting all morning because I've just had to share the exciting news that I am a step closer to getting my citizenship of New Zealand. So
That's
I now
right.
just been approved. I've just got to go to the ceremony and do whatever I need to do next. So it's exciting.
I mean, clearly that speaks to our high standards that we're.
Yeah, absolutely. You are incredibly lucky.
Every day I know that.
Yes.
Yes, I'm very excited though that you are going to be an official Kiwi, and very, very grateful that the process has been relatively easy for you. So
actually,
congratulations, my friend.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I'm going to move a few things around so that we can I can see you and see what's going on in the world. So we are 2 days into our coaching series, which I have to say has been awesome so far. Like I've had lots of really gorgeous people turn up live where possible, and then people have been catching it on the replay as well. So if you haven't seen any of those posts, then that is surprising, because I feel like all I do at the moment
is everywhere.
So yeah, check out the replay. Yesterday we talked. So we basically talked today and yesterday about self-mastery, which is the first part of our SHE process. And it's been really interesting. We looked at it from a couple of kind of different angles. I very much come from the sort of emotional and mental side of things, in terms of belief systems and how how they're set up and how they hold us back, and particularly how they show up when we're feeling stressed. And you come from that beautiful, spiritual, energetic, woo sort of side, but they kind of converge beautifully in the middle, and there's lots of crossover. And yeah, it was really cool. And we wanted to pop on today for our weekly wisdom and just talk about something that did crop up for both of when we were both speaking, and I think a lot of people watching it probably would really resonate with, is the fact that an awful lot of our beliefs we have belong to other people. And we just really wanted to spend a bit of time unpacking what that actually really means, and just sort of talk about how you can potentially do some work around that. So what does it mean to you, Erin? I'm going to hand it straight over to you, and let's get your thoughts.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously, my work, my self-development work, and the work that I do with others is deeply rooted in that concept of who we are in relation to the much bigger spiritual ancestral realm. And so a lot of the work that I do is around what our ancestors have left for us in terms of a legacy, and what we then leave for our descendants or for those ancestors yet to come. And so when we're talking about belief systems, like it's a lot of that talk about inherited beliefs, things that have come down through your family, things that have come, but like obviously there's that mother wound that we talk about a lot, and that I think both of us have experienced and dived into a little bit. And there's also that society that has been created by our ancestors, by the people that we come from, how that is something that we've inherited, and something that it's a generational belief cycle basically. And so for me it's about really understanding the energy behind that. So part of it is about that, like if it is an inherited belief, knowing that it doesn't come from a place of destructiveness, or a place of our ancestors not being not wanting the best for us, or not being good people and that sort of stuff. But it's really the energy of it is around them doing the best that they can in the situation that they can, having some context around that stuff, and then being able to decide whether that serves us to carry it forward, or whether it serves us to release it and let it go and create a new belief. And so that's kind of where I come from around this stuff.
I think that's really cool, the fact that you identify that whole piece. It's not that our ancestors or our teachers or our parents or anything like that were being assholes and giving us just shit beliefs to screw us up. Like, that's not what this is about. It's about understanding that, you know, where they were in society, certain expectations were the norm, and, you know, these do change as we move and we progress, but, you know, knowing that they were in a different space. And even, you know, for me, when I was, you know, it was over 30 years ago that I was, you know, building my belief systems, that the world has changed extraordinarily in the last 30 years. And yet the belief systems that I'm now working through are things that were set up, you know, they're often set up before you're even 8. And the problem is with that happening, it is kind of a fundamental flaw almost with the way that belief systems are set up for humans, is that we are trying to make sense of a world when we don't have a prefrontal cortex that is any way, shape or form ready to make logical decisions. So we take things that are said to us when we're children, and we take them as reality, and we pin things together that actually don't belong together. So these are the sorts of things that we have to start to unpick. So it's really interesting. You know, the example that I always use for me is, I remember being told very clearly by mum and dad, oh, you know, do stop showing off. They weren't saying it to be horrible to me. I was probably being really loud and annoying, to be perfectly honest, and you know, singing at the top of my voice and being that. They just wanted me to be quiet, but I took that on as a, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old as I must be quiet. If I'm noisy, I'm bad. And so, like, these things are connected up, these link, and then what we do, because of course the brain's always trying to prove you right, you know, that in that respect it is on our side. It's always trying to prove your thoughts are correct. So it will then go around looking for proof of this. So I've sort of had, like, you know, 30 plus years of trying to prove myself right, that if I am loud and say my thing and do, you know, show up in a way that I want to show up, then that makes me bad and noisy and loud and not approved, and I don't get approval for that. So it's having to, like, really understand how these things are created, and it's really difficult. And one of the things that I know, certainly from, you know, clients that I work with and conversations we've been having, is that there is a process that you have to go through about realizing, you know, what beliefs are. Number one is, like, knowing that they are simply thoughts that you no longer check to be true. Like you just accept them to be true, and you don't do anything about it. So as you can do that, you can then realize that they can change. Like, just because you have a belief now does not mean that has to be your belief. Like, you get to choose. And for me, that was the groundbreaking, like, thing that changed everything for me, was actually I was able to put myself front and center and decide what I wanted to believe. And then, you know, you have to do a bit of work about then sticking to it, because it isn't as easy as just going, right, that's it, I'm deciding. You have to practice, you have to work on it, you have to do something about it every single day. But it is totally possible to change that. And I think when you have that belief that it's possible, that sort of cracks it all open, and it starts to make the whole process much, much easier.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing for me is that our belief systems are deeply rooted in evidence most often. And so when we talk about, you know, that I believe that you have, in order to have the life you want, you have to work hard, as an example. And as humans, our innate desire is to seek out evidence to support that. It's like a scientist with a hypothesis, right? Like, we design experiments to get the evidence that supports or sends our hypothesis on its way. And we, as humans, we look for that evidence, and we say, okay, so where does that come from, and what evidence do I have to support it? And so it's kind of going into that space of just gentle curiosity a little bit, and saying, actually, like, what evidence do I have? And knowing that actually sometimes the evidence comes from within us. It's not a tangible evidence that we can put our finger on and say, well, this particular situation tells me this, therefore that. It's not quite that simple. And we have to recognize that we are spiritual beings, and that we are having a human experience, yes, but that not all of the evidence is based in humanness. And I know you hate that word, but there isn't another word for it.
I'm slowly getting used to it.
But you know what I mean? Like that, the evidence sometimes is about how it feels inside our body and whether we get that intuitive yes or no. Sometimes it's about checking in with ourselves and really testing, like, at a deep soul level, is that belief true for us or not? And if it's not, navigating the process of understanding it and identifying the edges of it so that we can then pull it out, release it, heal the wound, and expand the belief that is true for us. And that whole process is, like I said, essentially that's part of the she process, isn't it, that we're talking about? But in terms of self-mastery, really being able to identify what is ours and what isn't, and all of those rough edges that are part of those belief systems, and all of the things that come up for us, allow us to then decide whether we carry them forward, or whether we let them go. And if they don't serve us, it's our job really to serve ourselves and let go of them.
I always think it's a little bit like having a sort of knotty ball of wool that you kind of have to sort of slowly prise open and just sort of find the end. Then you can start to just pull it slightly and see what comes up with it. It's really interesting when you start to understand how many of those, the things that we just take to be true are so not what we actually believe. And I think you're right. It's making that decision that it's not, this isn't what I believe, this isn't mine, and then just gently looking and saying, well, who does it come from? What's the voice behind it? And quite often, like, you'll recognize an energy around that belief, and whether it's a grandmother or a grandfather or a teacher or a parent, whoever it is, or even a friend at school, it can
or
be
even society. Actually,
and I mean, society have got that they've got a lot. There's a lot of stuff we believe because that's what we've been told to believe. But that's a whole conversation for another day.
Sorry to stop your flow.
I was like,
sorry. Apologies.
But it's that whole being able to identify it and knowing that we can do what we want with these belief systems. If it's something that you like and you want to carry on, great, that's fantastic. But it's really important to just get used to just checking in with yourself, because that is what self-mastery allows you to do. It allows you to know yourself inside out, and that's what we say that she stands for. It's knowing yourself, liking yourself, and trusting yourself. And self-mastery is very much that first piece. It's getting to know all of you as well. It's, you don't get to just like the good bits and be like, oh yes, I'm just I'm all amazing and that's wonderful, because we all know that's not true. We all know that we have our dark side, or and of course dark side is black, it's seen as bad, and again, that's what we need to be changing, is that it's not bad. Like, we are a mixture of different emotions, we're a different mixture of different experiences, and some of those can make us feel good and some of them can make us feel bad, or not so good. So by just being able to identify and not judging, like, judgment is it's such a screw up. Like, when we go into anything with a judgment, like, it's really hard to get anywhere. It's like trying to walk across a field and then putting really big heavy boots on and then finding the muddiest path possible. So as you walk through it, like, all the mud sticks to your feet and it gets harder and harder to walk through it. That's what judgment does. It makes it really heavy and really difficult. So I challenge anyone watching to just check in with themselves and find out what are you judging yourself on. So
and I think when we can start to unpack some of those beliefs, that, like, those really core beliefs, those beliefs that affect us in every aspect of our lives, those are it's like opening a door and saying, okay, behind that door is a whole pile of other beliefs that belong with that one, and unpacking each of those. So if you think about some of the core beliefs that we hold, like, I think one of the ones for me that shows up a lot is you're always going to screw up the stuff that matters. And so
that's a nice one to have.
Isn't it? What a fucking awesome belief. And that belief isn't mine, actually. That belief does come from someone that I care about and that I respect. And so that's why it has been mine for so long. But when I start to unpack that, when I start to explore why I've taken that on and why I've accepted that as truth, even though I know it's not, then I can start to look at, so around the edges of that, what are the other things that I've taken on that fall into that same belief system? What are the things that have attached themselves to it? So it's almost like that belief becomes a magnet, and you pick up other things that are the same, and you just kind of collect this big ball of grossness that carries around with you. And when you can do that, you can start to, first and foremost, you can start to pull it out of your body. You can actually start to make those beliefs a physical thing, pull them out of your body as energy and get rid of them and just release them. But you can also then do the work to heal some of the woundedness that comes around with those, and also gives you the freedom to choose whether or not you want to take on, so for example, with my dad, a lot of the beliefs that I have about myself and what I'm capable of and what I'm worthy of come from my dad. I love my dad dearly and respect his opinion a lot, but have learned that his opinion of me and my capabilities is not the same as mine. And so I know now that when he comes forward with a viewpoint that buys into his belief system rather than my own, I'm able to put a block up and say, that's not mine and I'm not taking it on. And so it stops me from adding more to it.
You've mentioned something really beautiful there, is that you can identify that the belief doesn't belong to you. And just because you don't agree with that belief system and because you don't agree with what they think, doesn't mean that you don't love them. Doesn't mean that the relationship has to change. And I think that's something that's really important to just touch on, is that a lot of the time we have this sort of slightly warped view that if we disagree with somebody, and I think that we see this worldwide, it's like, if I don't agree with something, then something that you say, well, that means that I don't like anything about you. Well, that's not true. It's like, it's simply, I don't actually happen to agree that, you and I have a number of different views we don't agree on. We're able to still be great friends and business partners. So yeah. I think being able to separate the emotional attachment and that sort of feeling that I certainly, for me, I used to feel really, disloyal and guilty for questioning anything that my parents would have said or done when I was a child. I really struggled with it. And then I realized that actually I'm not saying that they're bad people. I love them dearly. They gave me a fantastic childhood. I appreciate everything they've ever done for me. It just means that those particular things weren't particularly great, and those particular belief systems that they carry, like with your father, don't serve me. And that's okay. We can have a bit of both.
Yeah, and that emotional separation is so important, because like I just said, like, it doesn't mean that I don't love him. It doesn't mean that I don't respect his opinion or welcome his opinion, actually. But it also doesn't mean that he doesn't love me. Just because his belief is that I'm not good enough at something, or that I'm not qualified enough at something, or whatever, that doesn't mean that it's not coming from a place of love. It doesn't mean that he's not looking at me with the eyes of a father to a child saying, actually, like, I love you and I'm proud of you and all of those things. It means that he hasn't taken the opportunity to look at his belief systems and work out what belongs to him and what doesn't. And that's perfectly okay. But for us, if we do this work, then we're passing on belief systems to our children and grandchildren that allow them the freedom to not have to do that work so much. Right? For like our best possible scenario when we talk about self-mastery, healing, and expansion is that for us, self-mastery is a massive part of it, and healing is a huge part of it as well. And then the expansion part is the part that we really like to do, but actually is probably the smallest of the three. Our children will have to do far less of the self-mastery and the healing and far more of the expansion. And our grandchildren should be doing more of the expansion again, right? Because we're doing the work, and that's the legacy that we pass on, is that we don't give them all of this stuff that isn't theirs, that they have to then work through. They only have to work through 5 layers to our 20.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful thing to be able to hold as your reason for doing things. And I think it's certainly what drives me.
Yeah, and I think that's really true, because we get told a lot of the time that, you know, you've got to do it for yourself, and absolutely you have to do it for yourself. But I think as women, we're generally more, there is a deeper connection. Like if we think about everything that, you know, sort of women generally, it's cyclical, it's like, so there's not a beginning and an end, it's all connected. So actually the need to do something for something bigger than us, I think is really natural. And I think when we can start to really identify that leaving a legacy and making change, being the change in the world so that it is better for the next generations, I actually think that makes it much easier to allow yourself to do the work and to value the work and invest in the work as well, because you know that this is actually not just about you, it's about bigger than you. You have to start with you, because you're the only person that you can control. Like, you know, and as much as I would love to control my, you know, 2-year-old, my 4.5-year-old, and the 44-year-old in my life, I can't. The only person I can do any sort of work on and change is myself. But the reason I'm doing it, the impact that the work I do on myself is directly felt by those people that I love. So it does change them, but in a different way. I think we shouldn't be afraid to say that we want to make these changes for other people, because there's a lot of, you know, we've almost gone to the extreme and like, oh no, you've just got to, it's all about you. And I do believe it is about us. And I do believe you have to be at front and center it all. But it's okay to say that you want to do the work to be better for for the people that matter to you, because that gives us a reason.
I mean, I think we're kidding ourselves if we say that the reason that we do the work is wholly and solely for ourselves, because when we change, we impact those around us. Like that's just the nature of being human and being part of a family, a community, you know, a society, is that we contribute to that from our own being to the people around us. And so when we're talking about doing this work and we're talking about navigating our belief systems and changing or releasing what doesn't serve us and taking on more of what does, really what we're looking at is like when we ask whether it serves us, what we're actually asking is, does it allow us to make that contribution in the best way possible? And that innately has a requirement that we're doing it for other people, because we're contributing for other people. We don't contribute for ourselves. Yes, we're lit up by it. Yes, it's on our heart to share it. And yes, we go out in the world and we bravely, boldly put on our big girl pants and go out and do the thing. But actually, the reason that we do that is because it lights someone else up, because it serves someone else, because it impacts someone else. And so all of this work, as much as you will have people say like, it's important to invest in yourself, it's important to do the work on yourself. Yes, but it's important so that you can make that contribution to the world and so that you can have the impact on the people who need your magic.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, that's where, and you know, if I'm honest, when I look at who I've worked with in the past and who I've been drawn to or aligned to in terms of learning and growing, it has always been to people who see it as being so much more than just doing the work for you. And the people that start talking about, you know, oh, you should want to do it for yourself, you're worthy of it and all of that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that you're not worthy of doing it for you. What I'm saying is that the minute that you start doing the work for you, you start doing the work for everyone else as well. And that has to be part of the equation.
Yeah, totally. It's it's really interesting. Oh God, I love these conversations. We could just go on for hours and hours, and I'm very aware that
it's true story.
Other things to do, yeah. But no, I love all of that, and I just want to throw the opportunity out to anyone watching this. If you want to have, you know, these conversations, or if there's anything that is coming up for you that you feel that you really could just do with some space to talk about it, you know, we are offering spaces for people like that. It is just purely connection. We are fascinated to know, like, is what we're saying resonating? Does it make sense? Does it, you know, speak to your soul? Does it not? You know, either way, tell us, because we would love to be able to, you know, to share. We're sharing what we think. It doesn't mean that that's the only
this is
way.
Our belief systems.
Yeah.
And you get to choose whether you take it on as your own, or whether it makes you question your own, or whether it aligns with your own.
Yeah.
Like that's the beauty of this work, is that when you get to know yourself, you get to know whether or not you're listening to the right people, or whether you're being openly curious, or whether you're shutting things down. And you know, what we believe and what we share comes from within us, and that will never change, because that's how we remain authentic to who we are. Does that mean that has to be the way that you think and the way that you feel and the way you see the world? Absolutely not. Either way, you are welcome in our space, and you are welcome to be part of the conversation with us. Like that, it's not a requirement that you buy into everything that we say. But if you feel aligned to what we say, then we would love to talk to you more about it, because it's what lights us up. It's what, you know, it's what is on our hearts to share. And like, as you said, there are definitely things we disagree on, and we have opposing beliefs around, and that's perfectly okay, because some of those conversations are the best conversations I've ever had.
I think just as society, there's so much, and I'm not going to get my soapbox on it. I'm going to be very aware about keeping myself sensible today. Not sensible, that's boring. But you know, there is a lot going on in the world at the moment, whether it's about vaccinations, whether it's about COVID, whatever it is that you want to, you know, pick a subject at the moment. But there are these sort of these views that it's like, well, this is the only truth, and this is my truth, and if you don't listen to me, then you are a, you know, a fuckwit. And I just think I hate that sort of behavior. I just think it's so destructive and so not helpful. It's like, this is my opinion, this is what I believe to be true for me. If you want to believe it, great. If you want to believe something totally different, absolutely your business. It's nobody else's place to do anything. And I just think we need to get better at allowing people to express their opinion and take it with love, like, and express it with love. Like this anger, it just makes me think.
As long as it's not deliberately harmful, it's welcome in my world. Like, you're most welcome to have an opposing view. You're most welcome to share that opposing view with me. Don't try and convince me that it should be my view. I'll make that determination for myself. And if it's deliberately harmful to someone, then that's not okay. But if it just creates a space for genuine debate and curiosity and openness towards navigating your own truth, then I'm all about that, and I will gladly have those conversations. But I just ask that everybody that comes into that space with me shares that same desire for collective thought and collective navigation. At the end of the day, like, that's the beauty of self-mastery, is that we get to know ourselves and know our own truths, and we get to like ourselves, I think, because of that. Like, once we've got to that point where we know who we are and what we stand for, and we're really convicted in that, then we can start the next part of the process, which is doing the healing, so that we like that about ourselves.
That's definitely probably been the biggest change I've noticed with where I am. You know, I've either shied away from difficult conversations because I don't want to get it wrong and get told off, which is, you know, a whole heap of belief systems that I'm working through still, or I would want to be right, and I would, like, you know, fight to the end to be right on something. And I get that from my dad.
That wounded energy then.
Totally wounded and totally from my father, bless him. I've only beaten him once in an argument, and I still remember that day, and I will hold it true. But what I'm able to do now, and it changes the energy with the conversations with him particularly, is that I can have a conversation about what I believe to be true. And actually, I'm not trying to convince him. He doesn't have to agree with me at the end of it. He doesn't even have to like what I say at the end of it. But I'm happy to say it, I'm happy to share it, because I know it's my truth. And if he listens to it and he, you know, makes him question something next time he hears it, great. If he doesn't, again, it's not, that's his thing, it's not mine. So being able to sort of stand in my truth and stand in my self-confidence and self-belief, that's been a real game changer.
Yeah. I mean, the whole time we've been talking, I've had this like niggly, like, you need to talk about the flat earth. But so like it's essentially like, that's what it is, right? There were a pile of people, like almost the entire society, that felt like Earth was flat. And someone came along and was like, I don't think it is. And I'm willing to go and seek out the evidence to do that if that's something that would serve you. And some people were like, nah, you're never going to convince me of it. Even after they had evidence of it, they still were like, nah, it's not. You know, but but they were still openly curious, and they were still willing to share their belief, even though it opposed everybody around them. And that's because they became convicted in that belief. And when we're convicted in our beliefs, we can stand in full power and say, actually, I'm willing to share what I believe because it's unshakable in me. Does that mean it can't change? No. Does that mean that it's right for you? Yes. Right? But when you can get to that space of real conviction, that's the desire that we have for you, is that you can become really convicted in who you are and what you stand for and all of the beliefs that serve you, so that you can then go out and make the change in the world that you want to make. And it doesn't matter to us what that change is. We're not about to try and tell you that you have to jump on board the Ellie and Erin train and go and try and make the same change as us. I mean, you're welcome to, but you know, it might be on your heart to make a completely different change, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, we would love to explore that with you and navigate that with you, and it's our hope that through this work you have that same spark ignited in you that Ellie ignited in me.
And you relit in me. Awesome. Well, I think we've done a lot of sharing of words today. We've got some work to do for tomorrow. So if you aren't ready, if you haven't joined us yet, check out the replays. Come along tomorrow. The more the merrier. It's a lovely bunch. Everyone's very friendly. No biting. And thanks for watching. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Thanks very much. And we will see you next week in another Weekly Wisdom.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.